just a few minutes and go a little bit deeper with you on some of the things that I've been talking about for a few weeks from the pulpit. In our sermon time, a few weeks ago, I had brought up the fact that throughout this next year, we're going to be looking at potential changes at Emmanuel, which will make us better and stronger. I sort of illustrated it with the idea of remodeling a house, that it's not repotting, it's not replanting, it is taking those good things that we have, those good bones of the church, and adding to it to make us better and stronger. And so I haven't been able to really go in depth with you about what that entails, what that looks like. I've given an illustration of a house or a church with pillars and a roof and sort of explained it, but I can see how that would be somewhat confusing. So let's take a few minutes. I'm going to show you some slides and I'm going to talk through where we are now and where we're hoping to get come next spring when we're looking at hopefully a new constitution, a new form of leadership and new mission statement and all those things to help us to become better and stronger than we have been before. All right, here we go. We are going to be looking at where we are heading at Emmanuel in the next number of weeks and months and even beyond that, of the purposes and strategies for who we are and where we're going. In order to do that, however, we do need to take a look at where are we at now and what are the things that have shaped us to be who we are, to be the excellent church that we are. And then we're going to look at the biblical ways that we want to look at our church as we go forward in the future. So a few weeks ago, I asked the church to, if anyone in the church could say our mission statement from memory without looking at the bulletin. And it wasn't surprising to me that not one hand was raised. Either they were shy or my hunch is that no one knew what our mission statement is. Now that's a problem because if we're an organization pushing toward a goal, we need to know why we are doing what we're doing and what we are here for. So I want to show you what our current mission statement is. Our current mission statement is that the purpose of Emmanuel Baptist Church is to glorify God by helping people become fully devoted followers of Jesus Christ. Now, that's not a bad mission statement. It's been a very powerful mission statement in the life of our church for many years. And in fact, it is sort of a cookie cutter mission statement because there are a lot of other churches that sort of peaked in the 80s and 90s that had this same sort of mission statement with helping people to become fully devoted followers. The last church I was at, I believe their purpose statement or their mission statement was helping people become active, lifelong followers of Jesus Christ. So it's really the same idea. It is a little bit confusing because when it says that we glorify God by helping people become fully devoted followers, are we talking about people who are already in the church? Are we talking about people that are not yet in the life of Christ? So there's some ambiguity here, and so that's one thing that we hope to kind of clarify as we look into the future. There are 4 strategic things that Emmanuel has on paper for the way that we do things. Again, they were very, very great for the time that they were in season. They're a bit dated, but as I read them to you, they're going to sound familiar to you. They used to be on banners in our sanctuary until we what do they call that? They call it refreshing the worship center there. But these were the 4 things. It was to celebrate Jesus through adamant worship, cultivate growth in your relationship with Jesus, carry out the work of Jesus, and then communicate the good news of Jesus. So the 4 things that at that time and for many years, our church was about was celebrating, cultivating, carrying out, and communicating the 4 C's there. And in many ways, that's great. We do that in our everyday life as believers. We should celebrate Jesus through adamant worship, both in the home and especially in the church together as a community. We are to cultivate growth in our relationship with Jesus. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we are who we are. We are to not stay stagnant in our faith. We are to grow in our relationship, carry out the work of Jesus, serving each other, communicating, evangelism. So yeah, there's some really good stuff here. But again, it's sort of has a shelf life, and we haven't visited this in well, I've been here for 9 years, and we really haven't focused on this very much. And yeah, we could resurrect this, but perhaps it's better to breathe new life into it, because we're not the same church that we were 9 years ago, certainly not 20, 25 years ago. So it's time to look beyond that. And so I've been talking a little bit about remodeling our church, not in a physical sense, although you may see a splash of paint here and there, but that's not a huge deal. But renovating our church in the sense that we need to re-examine who we are as a church. We need to re-examine who we are as individual Christians that are within the church, and then from there we can figure out what are we doing here, and how are we going to do it. And so this model that I have been pushing for in the last number of weeks, I've said could be likened to a church building with a foundation and then pillars and then a roof. I want to be a little more clear on that, because I am excited about this model and what it can do for our church in clarifying who we are and the vision that we need to go forward in the future. But in order to do that, I do need to give some credit first. These ideas are not new to me. Most of these church vision things that come up in churches are not new and innovative. Typically, we get our ideas from other places. And this book called Disciple Warriors by an old, he's not old, but he's an old professor of mine down at Southern Seminary, Chuck Lawless, wrote this book called Disciple Warriors, Growing Healthy Churches That Are Equipped for Spiritual Warfare. The idea of spiritual warfare shouldn't scare us off here. It's not the charismatic understanding of spiritual warfare. You'll see what I mean as we go through this model. And so that's going to be important for you to know that this comes right out of the idea of Disciple Warriors by Chuck Lawless. All right, as you can see here, we have a blank canvas of a bright and sunny day. You can think of that as downtown Mora, or you can just think of it as a nice, bright, sunny day. And we're going to build a church from here. So this next slide, we're gonna pour the foundation here, and the foundation is currently the series that we're in right now. The foundation, looking at Ephesians chapters 1-3, and it is knowing, experiencing, and worshiping God the Father for purposing our salvation, God the Son for accomplishing our salvation, and the Holy Spirit for applying our salvation. Those are the themes that are going to be prominent all through Ephesians. And that is essentially the entire Christian life, is knowing and experiencing, worshiping God for not only the various things that he does for us, but who he is. That's the foundation of our lives. It's the foundation of the church. And so that is what we are currently working through. This will go through, I believe, the middle of October to late October, depending on how things work out. And then from there, we are going to be looking at the purposes, or in this illustration, we're going to be looking at what's called the pillars of the church. And so there are going to be 3 of them. And so if you remember in our current model that's going on, we have the cultivate, carry out, celebrate, and well, now you can see why there's a little bit of a problem, because me as the pastor, I can't even remember them all right now. But these are 3 simple purposes, and they are grounded in the foundation, and they're going to hold up everything that we do in the church and as believers. So let's take a look at these 3 pillars. It's going to be reworded differently as we go through, but for sake of clarity and simplicity now, let's take a look at them. The first pillar being worshiping God. That is the first and most important thing that we do in our lives, that when we recognize our sin and Christ's work on our behalf, that we worship God. That is the point of our lives. Secondly, the next purpose is to love the church. And it's interesting that in the New Testament, there's sort of a priority in the New Testament, if we look closely enough, that believers take care of each other. And so our second purpose of the 3, notice there's a Trinitarian formula here, is to love the church. And we're going to explain what that means here in just a second. But the third pillar, obviously, is to reach the world. You could say love the church, love the world. But, again, we're going to change the words here just a little bit. So we have these three sections: the worship God, love the church, reach the world. That should be the purpose of any church. It's simple, it's catchy. You could use the term reach up, reach in, and reach out. You could love God, love each other, love others. I mean, the possibilities are endless, but it's simple to understand. It's simple to remember. Worship, love, reach. So those three things. But within each one of those pillars, there are two aspects of what is entailed in there. So we're going to look at those here for just a second, and it's kind of clever. Again, I didn't come up with this. It actually comes right out of Dr. Lawless's book here. But they all start with E, which I find interesting because our church starts with an E. So we could certainly say that these are the 6 E's of Emmanuel, or the E pillars of Emmanuel. And so let's take a look at them here. So I have the worship God there on top, just to remind us of where we're at. But the first pillar that we're going to be looking at here is to exalt God in worship. Obviously, if we are a church and our purpose is to worship God, then we ought to do that in exalting God. We come to church, we worship together, we push each other to exalt Him in our personal lives. So we exalt God in worship. The second one that we have of the worship of God is engaging God in prayer. Or you could say encountering God in prayer. But that's how Dr. Lawless would shape it. But I would say that we don't necessarily encounter God in prayer, although that is true. We encounter God through His Word, and then we interact with Him and engage Him through prayer. And so I wanted to refine that just a little bit. But you see the two pillars there of the first two E's of Emmanuel. We worship God by exalting God and by engaging Him in prayer. So you can see the two pillars under the one. So let's now look at love the church. So what is it that we as believers do together when we come together as a purpose? Well, the first thing that we do is we equip believers through teaching and mentoring. So that is when we come together for Sunday school, small groups, training opportunities, fellowship opportunities that involve training and education, and essentially helping those who are in the church be able to function as kingdom citizens in God's world, though we live in the world of darkness. So we equip believers on how to live godly, how to live lives that are pleasing to God. So the second one there is also encouraging believers. Life is not easy. Many of us are plagued with burdens and sins. Many of us have hurts and hurts that we have caused, hurts that we have received, or we're exhausted, spiritually tired, maybe physically tired, maybe physically sick. And so one of our purposes is to encourage believers in the fight of the gospel to come together to worship and to encourage them and get ready to go back into the world and do what we're called to do, which is exactly this third point here. Excuse me while I drop my phone, which is reach the world. The first one being edifying others. And what we mean by edifying others is to provide ministry and service. This would be the idea of loving the world, going out and bringing a cold cup of water to those who are thirsty. And so that would be the reaching out through edifying others. Again, as we go through time, this is going to be much clearer because every one of these is going to be a different sermon. Finally, in reaching the world, we are looking at evangelizing the world. That means it's not just serving them. We don't want to just exist so that they have better lives. The only way to have a better life is to know Jesus. And that's not even a better life materially or, of just necessarily quality of life, but it's knowing the grace and the mercy of God the Father, who purposed our salvation, Jesus who secured it, and the Holy Spirit who applied it. But we have a mandate from our King to go into all the world to make disciples from all of the nations. So we have these three purposes here: the worship God, the love the church, reach the world. And we have the six purposes under there: exalting, engaging, equipping, and countering, edifying, evangelizing. And so those are the pillars that are supported by the foundation. And now these pillars are going to support the next phase of this idea, which is putting a roof on the church. And so there are a couple of things that we're going to put in this roof. But before I do, I do want to explain a second here that the foundation is Ephesians 1-3. The six pillars are not in Ephesians. And so in a few weeks, when we're done with the foundation, we're not going to be back in Ephesians. We're going to be looking all over the Bible for what it means to worship God and to engage him and equipping believers. So we're going to be in the book of Acts. We're going to be in the Gospels. We're going to be sort of all over the place. So I don't want you to expect that we're going to be staying in Ephesians this entire time. We are going to be going back into the letter of Ephesians, however, when we get into this roof, because when you get into Ephesians 4, 5, and 6, those are the practical things that once you have all of these things together, and I'm going to take my little highlighter here. Once you have all these things working together properly, they are holding up how we ought to live as individuals here in the church and in community and in our family and all of that. And that's what Ephesians 4-6 is all about. The entire 4, 5, and 6 is all about our personal walk with Christ. You might think of the first half of Ephesians being more of the vertical aspect, and the last three about the horizontal. How do we live then rightly? So personal walk, family, it talks a lot about marriage. It talks a lot about children and work and all that kind of stuff. And also unity in the church. How should the church function? So all this is whole. And then there's one more as well, and that is our personal employment, which all of us have or have if we're retired. But these pillars are what is holding up the personal aspects of the walk, the family, the church, the work, basically our lives. The church goes to the foundation, is being held up by the pillars in order to have these parts of being in our lives. But we're not done quite yet, because we're almost there. So bear with me. The next part then is that the church is then guided by Christ. He is the steeple. He's the cornerstone. And when all of these things are working properly together, the power of the gospel, which again is the good news of Jesus' life, death, resurrection, and ascension, goes out from our church into the world to, again, make disciples of the nations, okay? And part of the reason why we are doing this is because oftentimes when we are a church that is not proactive in our systems and how we go about things, our mission statement, the ministries we do, we need to know why we're doing these things, and then have solid ways to achieve our goals in this. Because when we are just on the defense, we are pretty good targets for the enemy. When churches are not planned to grow in discipleship like this, we're sitting ducks for the enemy. So when the cross then is the steeple on this church, and it is shooting out the gospel from the sides, we can have confidence that when the enemy comes and tries to strike our church from the outside, that's what those black arrows are there for. We can have confidence that because we know the foundation, because we know the God, the Trinitarian God who saved us, who loved us, because we've been engaging him in prayer and exalting him, and that we've been building each other up and equipping each other for service and for all these things, and edifying others, that these flaming darts from the enemy are not going to hurt us. We're going to be a church that has a solid foundation, solid pillars, and a roof that doesn't have holes in it. And so that is essentially the model that we're looking at. It's a lot of information in a very short amount of time, so I apologize for that. This is going to be unfolded slowly over the next number of months. So if this is way over your head, and trust me, I've thought about this enough that it's still over my head a little bit, but we're going to get there. I think this makes sense. I think this is going to be great for our church. And so if you have questions about it, you can certainly contact me. I would love to be able to sit down with us so you can find joy in the Lord and joy in what our where our church is going. And so hang tight with us. We are a church that is in progress. I'm excited to see what the Lord does, that we would be disciple warriors for Christ, and that our church would be stronger than it has ever been. And I'm just excited to partner with you, because the most important thing in this entire process is you. So if you have any questions, let me know. Other than that, look forward to taking this journey with you on where we're going as a church.